Started. We are here for our August 9th, 2024 IDS Commission meeting. I welcome you all here, all of our commissioners that's on, our staff persons, our director, our council, any guests that we have, any chief public defenders or other folks that we have on. I welcome you all this morning. So I am going to start with introductions, if we could do that. I always like to start with that. I am Dorothy Hairston Mitchell. I am the chair of the commission, and I am excited to see all of you all on this lovely rainy day. And I'm hoping that you all had safe times during the storm, and that you continue to be safe. All right. So I will, let's see. I do this a couple of different ways every time, so I do it different ways. So we're going to start with, how about this? I'm just going to call the person that I see next on my screen, and then if you could call the next person you see on your screen. How about that? So I see Whitney.
Of course you do.
Of course.
Good morning, Whitney Fairbanks, Assistant Director / General Counsel, Indigent Defense Services. And I see Art Beeler.
Good morning, Whitney. How are you? Okay, I'm Art Beeler, and this is my last commission meeting. So I'm a little bit sad.
We all
welcome
are.
Welcome to everybody. Now I got to find somebody whose name is Brian Jones.
All right. Brian Jones from Burke County, and glad to be here today, and looking forward to the meeting. And it's a sunny day in Burke County in Morganton, and I am going to pick somebody because I don't see how it all juxtaposes. So I am going to go with Brian over at Parker Poe.
Hi, Brian Cromwell. Thank you, Brian. Commissioner Brian Cromwell, Mecklenburg County. And I'm going to pass it on to Chad Boynton.
Thank you, Brian. I'm Assistant General Counsel. Sorry.
You mute. You stay mute.
Can everybody hear me?
Can you all hear Chad?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Chad Boykin, Assistant General Counsel. I see Jonathan McInnes.
Defenders, Hoken, Scotland, District 21. And we're still here. They sandbagged our office this morning so we could come in. And thankfully, Hoke was open yesterday, so I had a dry office to go to regardless. One of the perks and benefits if anybody else wants to have a multi-county district. So just keep that in mind. And I think I see Mary Pollard.
Morning, everybody. Mary Pollard, Executive Director here I'm in Raleigh today at the Judicial Center. Welcome. And I see Marshall Ellis.
Good morning. Marshall Ellis. I'm out here in Nagsett, North Carolina this morning. Out here and looking forward to working with you all again. I see, I thought I saw one I don't see right now, Laura Gibson. I know she's on there.
Good morning, Laura Gibson, Chief Public Defender in the 2nd Judicial District. We had a lot of wind and rain from the hurricane, but we were able to hold court all yesterday. And I see Beth Stang.
Good morning, Beth Stang. I'm the Chief Public Defender in Henderson, Transylvania, and Polk counties. And I see Wadrina Baker.
Good morning. I'm Wadrina Baker Harrell, Chief Public Defender in Orange and Chatham counties. And we closed due to trees and power being out yesterday. And I see John Rubin.
Hi, everybody. John Rubin from the School of Government. A little soggy here, but nothing too bad. I'm not sure who everybody else has seen. I do see Wendy Sotolongo if she hasn't introduced herself.
Thanks, John. I'm Wendy Sotolongo. I run the Office of the Parent Defender, and I'm going to pass it on to Angela Henderson.
Good morning. I'm Angela Henderson, and I'm with IDS. I'm the contracts administrator, and I see Becky Whitaker.
Good morning. I'm Becky Whitaker. I'm the Defender Policy and Planning Attorney at IDS. Looks like the next person I see is Meredith Randolph.
Good morning, Meredith Randolph with the Research Division over at the General Assembly, the newest member of the Justice and Public Safety team with Fiscal Research. So my first commission meeting, and excited to be here. Let's see. I believe, has Wendy spoken yet? I see Wendy next.
I have gone, so I'll call out Carla.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carla Huff, Recruitment and Training Coordinator with IDS, and I see Hannah Turner with UNC.
I'm Hannah Turner. I'm the Senior Project Manager over at the School of Government Criminal Justice Innovation Lab, and I'll call out Jessie Smith.
Hi, Jessie Smith. I'm the director of the UNC School of Government Criminal Justice Innovation Lab, and rounding out our team is Alex Cowell.
He was fumbling his mute button. Hi, everybody. I'm the research director at the Criminal Justice Innovation Lab. It's a pleasure to meet you all. And now I'm struggling to remember who's actually talked. Whitney Fairbanks, did you talk?
I did.
Sorry. Well,
but I'm glad to pass it on to somebody if you'd like.
Wait. No, I see Caitlin Van Hagen. Hi.
Good call.
Hey, you're introducing yourself and then call us somebody else. She said you.
Kate was having some audio issues. I see her.
Okay, this is Kate Finhagen out of Orange County. That good introduction? I could say so much more, but we're gonna do brief introductions. All right. Then we have Neiman, Commissioner Neiman.
John Neiman. I am a former Chief Public Defender in Guilford County, and I am a new commissioner, and very happy to be here.
All right. Let's see who else we have. Berkule. I think I called you earlier.
Good morning.
Good morning.
With the Office of the Juvenile Defender, and I will pass it on to my boss, Eric.
Hey, it's Eric Zagra with the Office of the Juvenile Defender. This gets harder and harder. I think I saw Public Defender Josh Willie.
Good morning. I'm Josh Willie, PD for the 4th District. Hope everyone's well. And I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do now. I'm going to pass it on to Nicole Dobson. I see she just popped in. I think.
Yes, sir, she did. She may be having some it looks like it may be some video and audio things going on there. How about Jennifer Hardrow?
Thank you. Good morning, Jennifer Harjo. And I just have one suggestion. Apparently the participants are in alphabetical order, so maybe we could do that next time. But I would pass it on to Miriam Thompson, who also told me she might be having some difficulty. And if she is, I'll just tell you she's a commissioner in New Hanover County and a fabulous attorney. And
Thanks, Jennifer. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so can anybody see me?
No.
Okay, well, I'm here and thanks. I am a commissioner I practice in New Hanover County. Happy to be here today.
I'm Nicoya. I'm coming back on. Thank you, Judge Willie. And I am a state public defender in District 5, which covers Duplin, Sampson, and Jones. And I call on whoever else hasn't gone.
That's quite a bit. So let's go with, oh,
Dorothy, I don't believe Commissioner Doyle has been able to introduce himself.
correct. Yep.
Good morning, George Doyle. I represent the North Carolina Bar Association to this August group. I'm very happy to be here with all of y'all. I continue to learn a lot, and I appreciate all of your collective wisdom, and I'm here to do whatever I can to help. Thank you.
Karen Franco.
Do I have Karen marked as a commissioner?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Karen Franco. I am with the Holly-Wasaponi Indian Tribe, and I am one of the commissioners.
How about Joe Crosswhite?
The weather up here was pretty rough last night. We had a few tornado warnings, but everybody is safe, thank God. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Glad you were safe. Judge Crosswhite? Might be him or something there. I see Anik Lenore Peak.
Hi, Anik Lenoir Peak, Deputy Parent Defender. And I don't know who else is left.
All right, I'll start calling out folks I think we missed. Tucker Charnes. You're muted, Tucker.
No, I'm not kidding. Good morning, Tucker Charnes, Regional Defender, and I will send it off to Glenn Girding.
Good morning. This is Glenn Girding. I'm the appellate defender. I'm here in Durham.
All right. Did we hear from Amanda? Did we hear from Amanda? I don't think so. Amanda Bunch. Sorry.
Good morning, everyone. Amanda Bunch, IDS Communications Specialist.
All right, let's see. Sarah Oaks.
Dorothy, I think Commissioner Barber and Commissioner Cromwell have not introduced themselves yet.
Okay.
And those are the remaining commissioners.
Cromwell was early.
He was Brian.
Cromwell was like number 2.
Introduced himself.
Oh, Commissioner Rubain and Commissioner Barber.
Good morning, everyone. I was trying to lay low. I'm Stacy Rubain. I'm a commissioner. I'm an assistant federal defender in Greensboro. Good morning. Good to see everyone.
Good to see you too, Stacy. Commissioner Barber.
Good morning. I think my video keeps freezing. Tanya Barber. I am in the 8th, well, I think we're now the 9th prosecutorial district, Wayne County, Greene County, and Lenore, also an IDS commissioner. Good morning, everyone. Sorry for my tardiness.
All right.
We have the entire commission.
Okay.
Okay.
Dorothy, you have the entire commission present.
All right, perfect. All right, let me say this. Anybody else that would wishes to introduce yourself, if you could unmute and introduce yourself, how about that? Because we got quite a bit. I don't want to miss anybody.
I'll
Try
just
to
jump
keep
in.
up with it.
I'll just jump in, Dorothy. It's
Good
Sheriff
morning.
Williams. Good morning, everyone. It's Sheriff from the Office of Special Counsel. Good to be on with everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Dorothy, this is Capitol Defender Rob Sharp. Excellent to see everyone. We're going to be doing a recruitment lunch later today, and so I'm going to be checking out early.
All right. Thank you for getting on when you can, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. This is Aaron Gallagher, the IDS Fiscal Officer, and look forward to speaking to you all a little bit later.
Good morning, sir. We look forward to it as well. Anybody else that we missed?
Good morning. This is Chris Sadler, Research Director at IDS.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. This is Jamie Blackwell, IDS Business Process Manager.
Good morning, sir. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, everybody, for those introductions. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to welcome Jackie Arnett from OSBM
Oh,
and Morgan
yes.
Weiss, Fiscal Research at the Legislature, and I see a couple of other guests, and I'm sorry if I've overlooked other folks, but glad you're all here. Jordan Samuel from AOC. Thank
Thank you for that, Mary. Anybody else that we missed? Please know that we wanted to introduce and have everyone have an opportunity to introduce themselves if you'd like.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the senior researcher at IDS. My name is Joseph Boder.
All right. All righty. So next time, Jennifer, I'll take you up on that offer. And just go through that. I like to try to have everybody be involved and call it. So everybody was supposed to call the next person they saw on their screen, which would have gotten through everybody, but we got it done. And we're not actually in alphabetical order on the screen, but on the chat, you are absolutely right, the participants. So we can do it that way next time. I'll remember that. All righty. We're going to move through our agenda. So could I get a motion to adopt the proposed agenda? I do have one minor change that I would like to make, which is to move up the presentation from about the social workers in public defense. I want to move that up before our director's report. And with that amendment, if we could, yes, ma'am. Whitney.
I just want to be clear that you're moving to adopt the agenda that was sent by Amanda Bunch separately yesterday afternoon and not the one that was contained in your original packet.
Thank you for that reminder. Yes, you all should have received an amended agenda as Whitney just indicated. All right, so yes, that is the one. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda with that minor change that I just spoke about?
So moved, Ms. Chair. This is Art.
All right, got a motion by Art. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is that Brian Jones?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I got a motion and a second. A motion by Art Beeler, second by Brian Jones. All those in favor of the adoption of the agenda with that one change, please say aye or raise your hand on the first one. All right. Any opposed, please say nay. So adopted. All right. I want to read out the State Government Ethics Act reminder. Members of the commission are hereby advised of their duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict, and are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before this commission with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or appearance of conflict. If you have a conflict, if you could let us know that right now, or at the time when you realize you have a conflict, if you could let us know then, and we'll be able to note that. All right. Everyone, you have the minutes from our May 3rd commission meeting. Hopefully you have reviewed those, and I will entertain a motion to accept those minutes. Please. Did I hear you, Brian? Make that motion?
So moved.
All right, so I got Brian Cromwell. Did I have a second by Brian Jones?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Have a motion and proper second. All those in favor of adoption of those minutes from May 3rd, please say aye. Or raise your hand.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Nay. All right. That has passed as well. Thank you very much.
I'm going to abstain since I wasn't there.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All righty. All right, so again, I want to welcome everyone to our meeting here today, and I would want to say a few things. First, I want to start off with welcoming. As you heard from John Neiman, he is our newest commissioner here today. Well, he's here as a new commissioner, but he's already been doing some work with us. So we appreciate your service already, sir, but we are pleased that you have joined us as our newest commissioner. And he was recently appointed by the North Carolina Association of Public Defenders. Commissioner Neiman retired as Chief Public Defender for Guilford County in November of 2023, where he dedicated most of his entire life, which was about 27 years, in fact, to public defense there at that office. In addition to managing the office of 29 attorneys and 12 paralegals, he has been teaching criminal law, family law, contracts, torts, and property law to paralegals since 1995. Commissioner Neiman has lectured at UNC Chapel Hill, Duke University, Guilford College, Greensboro College, Elon School of Law, and numerous CLE programs on a variety of topics, including legal ethics, court systems, and negotiations. We are so pleased that Commissioner Neiman was appointed to be the voice and the vote on the IDS Commission on behalf of the Chief Public Defenders in North Carolina. His prior experience as chief will be an asset to the commission, and he will ensure the goals of IDS are pursued, and that purpose, values, and mission that created IDS and IDS Commission are upheld. We are so blessed to have you, Commissioner Neiman, join us on the commission. I know that you have already been serving as a mentor to other chief public defenders and will continue to be a resource to them and to us as a commission and to our IDS staff. And so we welcome you. I know you spoke a little bit earlier. Did you want to say a few words now? I want to give you this opportunity if you would like, sir.
No, I'm just fine. I didn't recognize who that person you just talked about, so I certainly can't beat that. But I'm so proud to be part of this and look forward to the work that we do here.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, next, I would like to introduce to you all or present to you all A. Trainum Dorn. Is she on this morning? Is Ms. Dorn on?
It does not look like she was able to join us, so hopefully at the next commission meeting, our new public defender in Johnston County.
All right. So I am going to hold off on speaking more about her because I would like for her to be present for us to end. But I want you all to know that Chief Dorn is our newest chief public defender in Judicial District 13. She just was sworn in, appointed. Well, she was appointed before, sworn in, took over July 1. She would cover the Johnston County area. So I'll speak more about her when she is able to attend. But I know, like I said before, with prior chief and Commissioner Neiman has served as a mentor and been working with them. And I know that she's ready to, well, already started and doing some good work, but ready to be very active with you all as the chief public defenders and working with us. And so we look forward to the great work that she will do as well. All right. So as I said, I'm going to move to, but no, first I want to say this too. Well, no, I'll wait. We'll hear from Jessica Smith, Hannah Turner, and Alex Call, UNC School of Government, on social workers and public defense. And you all should have the PowerPoint in your materials that you can kind of track along, even if they put it up on our screen right now.
Thanks very much, folks, for having us today. As I said, I'm Jessie Smith, and I'm the director of the Criminal Justice Innovation Lab. For those who don't know us at the lab, we are focused on promoting evidence-based criminal justice policy that supports public safety for North Carolina, a fair and effective system, and economic opportunities for all people. The seed for this project that we were asked to come and talk with you about, evaluating the implementation of social workers in public defender offices, actually came from prior work I did with former Chief Justice Martin and his North Carolina Commission on the Administration of Law and Justice. And I'm sure that many of you know that one product that came out of that commission project was a blueprint for indigent services in North Carolina, including expansion of public defender services statewide. That expansion, of course, was funded by the legislature last year, a historic expansion of public defenders in North Carolina. And as that work was proceeding, I had the opportunity to speak with Mary Pollard about indigent defense services priorities as that rollout was happening. And one thing she mentioned was an interest in exploring holistic defense practices in public defender offices. And a quick explanation, as we're using that term here, we're referring to services that address the causes that brought people into the system, like homelessness or substance use, and also the consequences of their involvement, which could be anything from a driver's license revocation to loss of housing. And the thinking in the field about holistic services is that if you can address those causes and consequences while serving the client's specific legal needs, there is potential to improve outcomes both for them as individuals, but also for the community in terms of community safety and community health. With that interest and working with Indigent Defense Services, we pursued and secured grant funding to do this work, looking at the implementation of social workers in defender offices in North Carolina. Our plan for our short time with you today is to share a little bit about the current project, get your feedback on it, share a little bit more about other work that we're pursuing with Indigent Defense Services, and get your thoughts on how else the lab could potentially be useful to the Commission and to Indigent Defense Services. And with that very brief introduction, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Hannah Turner, who you met before. Hannah is a senior project manager with the lab, in addition to running a number of our projects in the policing, pretrial, and indigent space. She is involved in the research in those projects. She herself has a master's in social work and actually worked in a public defender's office. So she's so well suited to be managing this project, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Hannah.
Thanks, Jesse. And I am going to share my screen, though I know that y'all have a copy of these slides, but there we go. All right. So I am going to tell you a little bit more about this project, like Jesse said, evaluating implementation of social workers in North Carolina public defender offices. The project broadly has two goals. The first is to provide offices with practical information and recommendations on the use of social workers, both offices that are interested to add social workers and offices that are interested to improve existing social work positions. And then the second is to determine data availability to support a future evaluation. And our research director, Alex Cowell, will talk with you all a little bit about that later. But along with these two goals, the project also has two components. The first is a workshop for chief public defenders that I'll talk about, and then also an implementation evaluation. So I'll give you a little overview of those two things as well. This workshop actually already happened. It happened in late April. And the purpose of the workshop was to bring together chief public defenders and select staff to introduce holistic defense practices and explore how social workers can be used in public defender offices. So all the chief public defenders in the state were invited, and they were allowed to bring a second person or a designee. So basically everyone was allowed to bring two people. And in the end, we had 35 participants, which included 14 chief public defenders, and then also a mix of social workers, assistant public defenders, admin staff, folks from IDS central office. And there was representation from 21 of North Carolina's 27 public defender offices there, when you counted our participants and our panelists. And then notably, 6 of the 8 new chiefs that were appointed in 2024 were also in attendance. So this event was a mix of presentations, like things like an introduction to holistic defense. We talked a little bit about social work credentials. There were a lot of panels. We talked about the defender and the social work perspective. We talked about funding opportunities. We talked about implementation. We also had a panel that included 2 individuals that had personal experience in the criminal justice system to talk about the client perspective of working with a social worker in the office. And then we had participant work sessions, so opportunities for folks to collaborate, to fill out worksheets, and these were things about like client needs and resources and identifying priority next steps. But the panels definitely were a big part of it. We actually brought in 7 panelists to join us for the event. 4 were from North Carolina. That included folks from the Mecklenburg County Public Defender's Office and Cleveland and Lincoln County Public Defender Office. We also brought in 2 folks from the Santa Cruz County Office of the Public Defender. That's a jurisdiction in Santa Cruz, California. We chose them after really a nationwide search. We talked with folks all across the country that used some holistic defense model. And we chose Santa Cruz because they actually, in the past couple of years, switched from decades of using a contract attorney model for indigent defense to having a public defender office. So similar to the transition that many of the counties were going through with the recent expansions. That's why we had them join us. And they've really started their office with a real embrace of a holistic model. And then we also had Justine Olderman, who currently works at NYU, but was the immediate past executive director of the Bronx Defenders in New York City, who are kind of the big name in holistic defense. They're some of the first people to originate that practice, so it was great to have her there as well. So the response to this workshop was extremely positive. On feedback forms, participants said they wanted the event to be longer, which it was already a day and a half, so we took that as a pretty good sign. And then folks also really encouraged us to do follow-up trainings. And so, with that kind of response, we have already been looking for ways that we can continue to support offices that are looking to add social workers or are looking for more information about their existing positions. One of the first things we did was we created listservs so that offices can share resources or ask questions on this topic specifically with other folks. And then we also created a listserv specifically for social work staff to, again, facilitate some of that connection and networking between the few offices that do already have social workers. And we're continuing to explore other training topics that we could deliver virtually. And really this workshop, it was not only a great educational opportunity for the participants, but it was a great way for us to introduce this project to people across the state. We were able to identify new offices that have brought social workers on board. We were able to connect with folks. And those connections have been really important for the second component of this project, which is the implementation evaluation. So the implementation evaluation, which is kind of the meat of this project, it's going to be going on until next summer, is a study where we're gathering information from offices that already have social work staff to determine things like how social workers are used, what kind of policies and procedures are in place, what kind of data social workers are collecting, and lots of other information. And the way that we're doing this is that we're actually conducting site visits across the state. We're doing interviews with chiefs, with social workers, with other staff members. We're collecting feedback surveys from staff. So, just things like, what is it like having a social worker in your office? And then also some offices are working with us as well to do client feedback surveys to understand the client perspective of what it's like to have a social worker as part of their defense team. We're also doing some review of social work case files to understand what information is being tracked. And then this last piece is a social work tracking log, which is really kind of like a timesheet. We've essentially identified different activities that social workers might be doing in their day-to-day in their offices, and we're asking them to keep track of how long they're spending on each of those activities to give us a sense, essentially, of how these roles are different in different offices. How are people spending their time, and how are things different? So this work will be complete in June of 2025. And here are some of the outcomes that you can expect at the end of the project. The first, of course, will be a public project report, and that's going to really describe the use of social workers in public defender offices in North Carolina, and also provide recommendations for offices that are looking to add social workers or improve their positions. And those participating offices and IDS will have an opportunity to review and provide feedback on this report before it's released. We'll also do a webinar to share the main report findings. But really, we're not waiting until the end of this project to share what we learned with offices. We're actively working throughout the project to make different off-the-shelf resources accessible. For example, we put most of the handouts from the April workshop up on our website, and that includes things like that client needs and resource assessment, some sample job descriptions, information about using social work interns, and I'll put that link in the chat once I'm done sharing my screen for anyone who's interested to go and look at it. But really, we're going to continue to create and compile resources, especially because when we've been on these site visits, everyone we've talked to has been very open and eager to incorporate new ideas and to learn new information. And so we have some ideas of some resources that we could be interested in compiling, like some information about data collection practices for social workers. Thanks, Jesse. Jesse put that link in the chat for anyone who's interested in the existing resources. But we're hoping to do some more about data collection for social workers, and maybe potentially some resources about onboarding and managing social work staff. But if there are any resources on this topic that you feel would be particularly helpful, please don't hesitate to let us know. We're certainly open to some ideas on that front. The last outcome that you can expect is a proposal for a social work impact evaluation. And that is something that Alex is going to talk about a little bit more. But first, I will just make sure that nobody has any questions for me.
So I do see one question by Commissioner Doyle. I'm not so sure if this is one that you can answer, but the question is, he's asking, how would I, a PAC attorney, get the funds to obtain social work services? Because I know you're speaking about the social workers that are housed or located inside the PD offices.
That's right. Yeah. So the focus of this project is on the public defender offices, not necessarily on resources that might be available for PAC. But even in the offices, folks have gotten funding for these positions in different ways. It's not all, state funded positions. So there's some diversity there. Any other questions?
Could I ask that question in a little slightly different way? So my prior experience was I was used to be an assistant public defender here in Durham County, and we have a social worker in that office. And I was also a private assigned counsel as well previous to that, and even after that time that I served in there. And so I had a relationship with the social worker in that office. And so there were times in which I could utilize her services and get her assistance, especially with those clients that I was able to maintain my client relationship with once I left the office. Did you by any chance notice that has been the case with some of the social workers in some of the other offices, and maybe that would help Commissioner Doyle with what you're asking, if you could possibly have access to the social worker in an office near you or in your area?
So far when we've talked, so we visited 4 offices so far, and so far we've talked to folks, they haven't just mentioned too much about external, services they might provide for other private attorneys. There are definitely social workers that, partner strongly with external community partners, and there might be some resources there. But I'll say we haven't heard that mentioned too much in terms of, do they work with other, counsel that's providing indigent defense services, but are not within the public defender office. We haven't heard that talked about too much yet.
We have heard them talk about, however, that they're under-resourced with what they have. So there's already stress within the defender offices serving defender clients. So I think that's a policy issue that perhaps the commission might want to talk about.
Absolutely.
I have a question, Jesse, one of the things that I do as a PAC lawyer, as a private lawyer, is I'm practicing social worker without a license. I'm, talking to the Army to see if they'll let this guy in. I'm calling the housing authority to see if this guy can get housing. So that, that's just naturally part of what you have to do, as y'all correctly recognize. But the resources, even if I call, the resources aren't there. I'm not sure a Superior Court judge is going to give me money for a social worker. So I don't know if y'all have talked to the conference yet about that. They're very strict about what they let me get as a so-called expert. I can get a psychologist, But so I'll finish with this. In light of the fact that I may not get access to those kind of people that you are going to send us, these trained social workers, can you train us lawyers so we can do a better job even as amateurs until we can afford or get your services? Thank you.
Well, definitely the information we have on our website is open for anybody to use. I will say, of course we can't necessarily, maybe Jesse has some thoughts on this too. And the trainings that we plan to do in the future, are potentially open as well. But it's an issue, like you said, plenty of public defenders are, yes, they're social workers on the inside as well. Y'all are doing a lot of work that, are providing those types of social services. I think the benefit for the offices that do have them, like you're mentioning, is that the social worker can do that work and then the attorney can focus their efforts on the actual legal case.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize what I said at the outset that this is a grant funded project and it has very specific tasks associated with it. The workshop was specifically to support. It's not a policy judgment on what's needed in the community, but because clearly you have stated an important need, but it was specifically associated with public defender expansion and supporting it within public defender roles. Again, that does not mean to exclude or minimize the need that may exist anywhere else. And again, I think that that's an important policy consideration that perhaps the commission would want to explore. It is not something, in all candor, which is openness and transparency, are our values, that is part of this particular project, providing broader training. Just resources are not there to do it in this project. It doesn't preclude it in the future.
Thank you so much for that explanation. We do appreciate what you all are able to do in research. And it sounds really, really good that the folks were looking forward to more time other than the day and a half that you said. So that's very promising. We do have another, it looks like a statement by Beth Stang. I want to make sure I'm getting it all so everybody can hear in case you're not able to see the chat. And she stated, we have a social worker, client advocate in our office, and it is something we talk about often, helping folks that aren't, quote, end quote, our clients. We try to not overburden our social worker, but also not refuse help. Sometimes she will help point PAC in the right direction at a minimum. And Ms. Stang, that is exactly the experience that I have with the social worker here in Durham County. So Commissioner Doyle, at least hopefully you have someone that you could point to that at least can give you some guidance and all of that. My experience is just kind of across the board that offices help offices help the PAC attorney, as much as we possibly can. And then of course our IDS staff will assist anywhere that they can fill in the gaps as well. So all right, Ms. Turner, I didn't want to talk too much, but I
that's
what we had in the chat there.
That's why we're here, is because we want to hear from y'all. But I will say then, so these questions about sort of the future and future potential work, Alex Powell, our research director, is going to talk a little bit more about how this project is really laying the foundation for some potential future work with IDS. So Alex?
That's right.
Before Alex starts, can I say something? I just want to thank Mary for.
Uh-oh, Kate, you going out. Uh-oh, we can't hear you. Oh, Kate. It sounded like you were about to thank somebody, which is going to be really, really good. But all right, hopefully Kate can get back on. I also want to read what Brian wrote. I just hired a social worker with 17 years of experience as a paralegal in my office. So good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, we may be wanting to talk with you. So thank you for that introduction, Hannah. I only have a couple of minutes, folks, so we can let you move on with the rest of your business. But as Hannah mentioned, that so far what we're looking at is what do these officers do with the social work function? The next phase is to understand, well, what is the impact of using a social worker on things like client outcomes? Now, we haven't secured funding for that, but that is the intended next phase of this whole project. So we would like to understand things like how are case outcomes impacted by having a social worker involved? How many clients are connected to treatment programs? You can probably guess that the top 3 things I hear on these site visits as to why a social worker is needed in terms of their client needs, aside from their legal issues: substance use, mental health, housing, and number 4 is typically transportation. And so if the purpose here is to improve their lives beyond just their cases, how are clients then connected to those needed services? Does social work, for example, also involve reductions in, or does it impact client recidivism? If you are successful in linking people to services, does that then have a downstream consequence? So you can see that if we're trying to get to that, we need to answer questions like, from this implementation evaluation, the thing that we're doing right now is, where do the data come from? We have court data, but what else is needed and how do we get it? For example, one officer has told us that one of the purposes of their funded social worker was originally to get people out of jail to ease jail crowding issues. Well, if that's the case, then we'd need jail data. Another question is, well, what exactly do we compare to what? This is an evaluation now that we're talking about in the future. What do we need to compare to what to assess that impact? Other design issues in terms of designing that evaluation is, how do we combine public defender offices? What we're seeing is some variation in the way that offices are set up and the way they use social workers. So that's all coming toward the end of this project so that we can hopefully secure funds to assess the impact of social workers in North Carolina on client outcomes.
With that, I'll just take a minute or two to sort of wrap up and mention that this isn't the only work that we're pursuing in collaboration with Indigent Defense Services. I did check in with Mary Pollard as the expansion was happening and ask about the interest in an impact evaluation of moving from essentially PAC to the new public defender offices supported by PAC. And of course, there was that interest both to inform internal practices about best practices, challenges, factors for success of opening new offices, but also to inform future expansion. And so working with Indigent Defense Services, we put together a proposal and have already submitted to a donor to initiate that work. And we're looking at, we've identified a second donor that we're also going to put that in. Again, the purpose of that work is to lay the groundwork for an evaluation of the impact of PD offices for the reason that I had articulated. But we are very interested to hear if you all have thoughts on other ways that the lab can support the Commission, Indigent Defense Services, and the people providing services on the ground. I'll just emphasize, we're not primarily a training organization. We are primarily a research-based organization. Sometimes training is just inherent in the projects that we do, but we would welcome your thoughts now or anytime in the future about ideas in which we can most effectively use our interdisciplinary practice to support and improve the delivery of indigent defense in North Carolina. And certainly if you have thoughts now, we would welcome them.
Anybody want to share any thoughts or have any other questions for our folks here? So I wanted to read, I know you all have the chat, but just in case for those who aren't able to see it, Kate said, I wanted to thank Mary for initiating this important work. I worked at the Bronx Defenders, and the holistic defense practice elevates outcomes for our clients and impacts recidivism and public safety significantly. I agree. Mayor Pollard said, thanks, Kate, but this all started before me with the recommendation for the social workers and Chief Justice Martin's report and with SOG running with the grant. Kate stays, to George's question, we have been able to get MSW students embedded at the Orange County Public Defender's Office and CJRD, and they could work in a lawyer's office too. They are required to have a practice placement. Art says, thanks everyone. So many of the needs of clients not only deal with the legal, but helping the client get the services which can get them out and stay out, thus impacting recidivism, because it is the, quote, little things, end quote, from an old social worker, correctional administrator. Thank y'all for those comments. I do want to piggyback too on Kate's comment. So when I was a professor at the law school, I ran the juvenile law clinic, and I actually had every semester a MSW student working with me in my clinic to assist my students in their representation of the juvenile delinquency clients. And so I share that same thought and concept that Kate just spoke about, how you can reach out. So Commissioner Doyle, that may be a resource as well to speak to, you know, the universities or folks and see if you can get an MSW student or even an undergrad social work student would be good as well. And so they really, I thought it was going to be, I thought about it from the standpoint of the students, and because I had been in the PD's office where we had a social worker, that just made sense to me. And then working with my students and the clients, but I didn't realize just how much of an impact the work would be on the MSW student. They actually appreciated it just as much as we did as well. So that is another just another comment that I wanted to make on that. I think Kate also says in county criminal justice resource departments, like in OC, have social workers available for PD and PAC clients, but I think judges would authorize funds for social workers at a lesser rate. And Ms. Turner, thank you for putting that resource specifically on using MSW interns in the chat. There's links there, you all, that you can click on so that you can get that information. Mary, I see your hand up.
No, I just wanted to thank Jesse and Hannah and Alex. And I dropped a link to the Criminal Justice Innovation Lab website into the chat. And anybody who's interested in indigent defense or criminal justice should spend some time familiarizing themselves with the work that the lab does, because it's incredible. And, you know, it's so important to have kind of data to help inform policy. And I'm just really grateful for the work they're doing. And I'm really grateful that one of their chosen areas has been indigent defense. So thank you for that.
Yes, Mayor, I echo those same sentiments. We really appreciate you all. And we look forward to the continued work that you all will do and how it can assist our folks. And I think it will probably expand. It continue to grow with what you all are doing. And so we really appreciate that. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right. I know, Jesse, you had a hard stop, so I want to make sure we got the time in with you all.
Thank you so
folks,
much for having us. Folks, please reach out if there's anything we can do to help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so moving right along, we are going to go into our director's report on IDS business. And before you speak, Mary, I just want to publicly say, yet again, thank you, Mary, for the work that you do and with your team, Whitney, everybody there at IDS. And specifically, I want to thank you for being such a godsend and being a voice for us over at the legislature. I know you're about to give some legislative reports, but I just want to thank you publicly again. You have such great poise, patience, and perseverance. Just the professionalism that you exude. We know that we are able to forge through some things because of your great leadership and your poise and professionalism. And as I said, the perseverance that you have. And so I really, really appreciate you. And I want to say that on behalf of the entire commission, as well as our IDS staff, as well as our public defender's offices and our PAC attorneys, because without your leadership, we would not be able to get the things done that we have been able to get done through you. But with that being said, we will hear from you on our IDS, your report on IDS business.
Thank you, Dorothy. You're very kind. Whitney must have told you I had a rough week.
She did not, but you know I'm going to always give you the thanks that you deserve. So
thank you. We have an amazing staff here. I'm just so excited and proud of the team we have here. I won't take a lot of time this morning because on the legislative side, there's not a whole lot to report. I will report kind of on the operations side that the team has been super busy. As you know, the fiscal staff and the research staff, Chris Sadler, Aaron Gallagher, Shannon Simmons, Joe Oder, Chad Boykin have been working like crazy to build out the new OASIS website online invoicing system that's going to help us pay PAC faster. I want to give a special shout out to Amanda Bunch, our communications director, because she has developed and is implementing training for the attorneys who will be using this new system, and she's doing a fantastic job. It's a heavy lift. It's intensive. We can't just roll this out, right? People have to. It's really easy to use, but it's tremendously difficult to reach each and every PAC attorney in the state of North Carolina who are so busy doing other things, and just grab their attention for a minute and say, hey, look, we need 10 minutes of your time, do this training, and we're going to be able to pay you so much faster. So thank you for that, Amanda. And thank you to everybody at IDS who's working on this amazing project. And a year or so from now, the days of paper and envelopes will be over, which is kind of amazing. You're going to hear a little bit more later from Whitney and Tucker about Defender data, our new billing and time management system for the PAC who are under contracts. Jamie Blackwell, our business process manager, has been working like crazy trying to get that rolled out. And it's been again a heavy lift, but it's going well, and we're learning a whole lot. But you'll hear a little bit more from Whitney about that later. On the legislative side, so nothing to report there other than what I've already communicated by email. As you know, both chambers have proposed, I guess, continuation budgets that would have adjusted the biennial budget. Both chambers included an additional $12 million for PAC in their budget, which was great. But they adjourned without passing any kind of budget adjustment. They've come back a couple of times to do some veto overrides. I do not know whether they will be back before the long session or whether they will be back and address any of the budget issues. So that's where we are there. In terms of the 2025 legislative long session forecast, this is going to be a big topic of conversation at the next IDS Commission meeting, and we'll have some discussion before that time. But right now, our research staff and the fiscal staff are working really hard, working with me to kind of develop what our pitch will be for the long session. We really need to focus on getting PAC money, having sufficient PAC money to pay PAC 12 months a year. Ideally, we would like enough to increase PAC payments. Our research department is working on a survey that will go out to private assigned council, and we're hoping to use that to maybe pitch some pilots of incentive programs for private assigned council, things that would help them, but maybe wouldn't cost as much as it would cost the state to raise the rates to $152 an hour or whatever it would be to match federal court. So you'll hear more about that. It's some exciting and creative stuff, and I hope we can get something moving there. On the PD expansion, there are a couple of districts out there that are really chomping at the bit to open a PD office. I'm working with them and talking with their folks at their county commissions about space. 8 new offices was a heavy lift. I'm not sure we can do that again. I think the law schools need to be making some more lawyers, but maybe we'll have some additional PD expansion in the next session. But something that's equally, or perhaps priority, more of a priority, is getting some additional staff in some of our more underfunded offices. We need to add some ATDs, and we need to add some state defenders to get the workloads a little bit less egregious. So I think that's really all I have for my report. Aaron and Tucker and Whitney have lots of information for you. So do we have any questions?
Thank you, Mary. Anybody have any questions for Mary?
I do.
Okay.
Mary,
Commissioner Doyle?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Mary, have you been able to sort of do a post-mortem on the emergency work you had to do with that certain legislator that was proposing removing the appointment powers of various entities to the commission? And where is that still pending? Where are we on that?
So that that bill was introduced on the Senate side. It was amended. It was amended again, and it did not get taken up in the House. Again, I think the intent was to add some seats to the commission, and it maybe got rushed through. And I don't know if or when it will resurface, but if it does, I think we've had good conversations, and your appointing entities have had conversations with the players, and we'll just see what resurfaces in the future.
Is there anything we can do, those of us that, work in this area? I know it's public defenders probably can't commensurate with their job do this, but those of us who are private citizens, can we be of assistance to you to perhaps educate why these appointing authorities are important? These are people that are in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly, when you kind of look back at how the commission was made up, I think the idea was to get the voices of as many attorneys as possible from across the state, from different practice areas. I know that your appointing authority is the Bar Association. I know that the Michelle Frazier at the Bar Association stepped up and had a lot of conversations with folks at the General Assembly. So that's how it that's how it happens. That's how we fix things or change things or address things is with conversations. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Doyle, for that question. With that being said, I do want to thank all of our commissioners and other folks who did assist in this effort to educate folks and in helping Mary and her work over at the legislature and legislate specifically on this issue as well as others. So yes, if we can have our commissioners and anyone that can, advocate, educate, speak on our behalf, speak very well about the work that we do, and the need for us to continue to have our folks on the commission and the voices that we have, as well as any great words that you can share to get us more money so that we can pay our PAC folks and establish these different offices. So yes, I appreciate everyone that's done that so far, and any folks that can do that moving forward, we greatly appreciate you. It does really help Mary in the work that she's doing. All right, anybody else have any questions or comments for Mary? All right. So we will move to fiscal reports at this time. Aaron.
Yes, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
So just give me a moment to bring that up here. Okay. Yeah, so good morning, everybody. I am going to provide an update on some information I shared with you at our previous meeting in Hillsborough. At that time, we talked about the funding situation, particularly in the PAC fund, as we approach the end of fiscal year 2024 that ended on June 30. We forecasted that we were going to run out of appropriated funds, which we did. The primary reason for that was the fact that our new PD offices siphoned away funding from the PAC. The General Assembly funded the new PD offices by shifting appropriations out of the PAC fund to the PD fund, which makes sense, but it was done a bit at a bit accelerated rate. Those PD offices will have an impact of $9 to $10 million, I would imagine, but not right away. So that created a little bit of a shortfall. We were able to cover that shortfall, and I'm going to get into that in just a moment, but this is a slide that I showed you previously. You can see over the past several fiscal years, demand for the PAC has steadily grown. Our average monthly PAC demand for last fiscal year was 7.7 million. I do want to point out that I think that number is somewhat artificially low because we curtailed and throttled spending in April, May, and June to ensure that we kept payments going at a steady pace without ending or stopping payments prematurely. So 9.2, 9.4 million were some of the highest, if not the highest months we'd ever seen in the PAC, and those occurred last fiscal year. That trend is continuing. Move to my next slide here. Pardon me. So you can see steadily we have spent more out of the PAC over the last several fiscal years. As fiscal year 2021, of course, that was still in a time when the COVID pandemic had slowed down court operations. But since things have ramped back up post-COVID, we have seen a $30 million jump from 2021 to 2024 for demand for use of the PAC. So where does that leave us? That left us with a bit of a shortfall last fiscal year, or a projected shortfall. How did we manage that shortfall? Well, myself, Shannon Simmons, our accounts payable supervisor, Chris Sadler, our research director, and Sonia Colon, who is not with us today, we looked at spending on a daily basis to figure out, okay, what funds do we have obligated and what resources do we have available to pay those? One of the first places we went was lapsed salary, and that is funds that are generated by positions that are vacant for a period of time. With the new PD offices coming online, it took a little while to fund those positions. We also have normal turnover. So as those positions lay vacant, those salary dollars are unspent, and we're able to reallocate them for this purpose. We also did our best to maximize the use of all other available revenue sources. We were fortunate last fiscal year that we brought in more proceeds through the set-off debt program than we had budgeted. So OSBM was willing to allow us to increase our budget expenditure and receipt side so we could spend those funds. We accurately and effectively utilized the money that we draw down from DHHS from the federal 4E program. That offsets costs for attorneys involved in abuse, neglect, dependency cases, termination of parental rights cases, appeals of those cases where there's a child in state custody, in DSS custody in social services. We also set aside, as I mentioned to you previously, a little bit of funding, about $4 to $5 million a few years ago. And with interest, it increased to just about tad over $5 million, because there was a anticipation that we may not be able to notify individuals whose tax returns or lottery proceeds we intercepted for set-off debt in a timely manner. We were able to overcome those challenges, but those funds sat there unused in a reserve fund. And so that was a readily available source of funds to help us get through last fiscal year. Of that 5 million or so, we drew down 3.9 million. So about 1.1 million is left. So through those mechanisms, we were able to continue payments through the remainder of the fiscal year without slowing things down drastically or stopping payments at all, as had been the case in previous fiscal years back in the teens. This was a slide I shared with you previously of how we thought fiscal year 25 was going to shape up. We have appropriations for the PAC fund of 56 million. We expected that spend to be 8.3 million a month, so that take us about $100 million in the PAC fund. You saw it was 93 last year, so I think there's some growth, and we expect that to be around 100 million, or we did expect it to. That leaves us with a projected shortfall of almost 44 million. Previously, we thought, okay, how can we address that shortfall? Well, maybe we'll over-realize our 4E receipts. We've got that reporting to DHHS going very, very well, and DHHS has steadily reimbursed us for our costs for those particular cases I mentioned earlier. We expect the new PD offices to have a positive impact on PAC demand, bringing PAC demand down as the demand shifts to the state-funded PD offices. We're hoping that will be about 5 million. We anticipate being able to use lapse salary again, hopefully in the neighborhood of 6 million. That left us with a $32 million projected shortfall for the current fiscal year, and that's what I shared with you in May. I'm going to show you some revised numbers now. Again, the appropriation does not change. We expect spending to be actually closer to 9 million a month, and that was my thought initially. We were a bit conservative estimates before, but I think spending will average about 9 million a month, and I'll get into how we get there. Of course, in July of this year, last month, we spent 10.6 million in the PAC, but please note that some of that was demand from June that we just weren't able to get the payments issued in June due to year-end procedures and whatnot. So 10.6 million in July was high, but I don't think it's reflective of a real month's worth of work. It's all of July and a little bit of June. So if we dial that down a little bit, we probably going to do 9 million a month. I know for the first first week of this current month, I looked at that yesterday, we'd spent about 2.25 million. That means we'll spend again about another $9 million in August if the current trends continue. The 2.25 million that we spent already continues on for the next 3 weeks. We're at $9 million. So that leaves us with a new revised projected shortfall of almost 52 million. How do we close that shortfall? Well, we were able to carry forward some of the unspent appropriation from last fiscal year. Most of that was lapsed salary that we just didn't have time to revise our budget, get the funds, and spend them last fiscal year. So OSBM allowed us to bring that money forward. Again, we have the $5 million anticipated impact of the PD expansion. And we have lapsed salary. I've adjusted that up based on what we saw in July from the 6.4 million to 700. I'm sorry, from 6.4 million to 7 million. So the shortfall has grown. Our projected shortfall has grown from 32 million to closer to 39 million. How do we manage that? That'll be a little bit more challenging this year. One way we can do is by controlling spending. We can look at the amount of appropriation we have left for the next 10 months and say, okay, well, September through June, we're only going to spend $6 million. We're only going to spend $6.5 million. It just depends on how August winds up, what we're left with for the remaining 10 months of the year, and how we divide that up. We'll use lapse salary, as I indicated, hopefully to the tune of 7 million. If there's more, we'll use more. We'll want to maximize all our revenue sources as we did last year. We'll keep a close eye on set off debt. But I warn you that what we have seen with the new e-court system and its set off debt module that we've given to work with does not give me a great deal of hope that set off debt funding will exceed budgeted amounts. I hope we can equal what we've budgeted. We'll continue to use the federal 4E funds. And there is that $1.1 million left in that set-off debt reserve that we utilized last year. We'll utilize all of that and then some if it earns some interest between now and the time we turn to that in maybe the early stages of 2025. The last way we might manage this would be the use of an emergency appropriation. I know we have representatives of Fiscal Research and OSBM on the call with us today, and I want to thank them for being here and hearing this, and I welcome any questions they may have. But if the General Assembly does reconvene anytime this fall to take up any matters that they feel are necessary, or when they come back in the spring, perhaps we could get some appropriation. The original budget bill that didn't go through to revise the biennial budget included additional 12 million for IDS. That would certainly help our cause, but I don't know the likelihood of getting an emergency appropriation, but we'll certainly push for one. So as I mentioned earlier, the challenges to managing this current fiscal year really stem from the fact that spending continues to grow. We don't see it leveling off anytime soon. One challenge to throttling spending, controlling spending, is that we do have commitments to contract attorneys as well as capital attorneys. We don't like to delay spending in those areas because we've committed to pay those attorneys. They're going to work in Defender Data and do a few other things that you'll hear about later. And as a reward for that, we try to pay them at regularly predicted intervals once a month. So to curtail spending, it would be difficult to do for the contract attorneys, which means just the run-of-the-mill PAC that are submitting fee apps would bear the burden of any slowdown in spending. Also, PAC attorneys that do capital cases, those are high-dollar cases. Folks count on those funds coming in. They've waited a while for a disposition, and then they expect payment, and that's reasonable. So if we were to throttle spending, it's hard to do it for our contract and capital attorneys. There is the potential decrease in that availability of lapsed salary I mentioned earlier because we are filling positions in our new PD offices. And if they are filled and they continue to remain filled, that could have an impact on the availability of lapsed salary. As I mentioned earlier, the volatility of set-off debt revenue due to e-courts, it's hard to predict set-off debt receipts, particularly because what we're seeing is inverse of what we'd expect. The big counties, Wake, Mecklenburg, now Guilford, are on e-courts, and set-off debt we're collecting is going down in those counties, and those are our big counties. We would expect to see more from them. So we really need to get to the bottom of that. The fact that we only have 1.1 million of that 5 million reserve left, that's a limited source of funds there. And the ability to obtain an emergency appropriation is unknown at this time. We're going to push for one, Again, I call on my colleagues from fiscal research and OSBM that are on the call to take that message back to their superiors that we may be come knocking at their door for such an action. So that's my brief presentation. It's not a rosy one, but it's one we're aware of and we're working on at a daily basis. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Aaron, for that presentation. As you say, it's not a rosy one, but it is a necessary conversation. We appreciate you being so transparent and digging deep in that material and making sure we are fully aware of everything that's going on so we can do the work that we need to do. I see Art. I see you raising your hand if you want to.
Please. Hi, Aaron. How are you?
I'm well, Art. I hope you are. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Have we, for lack of a better term, have you guys done a long-term doomsday report?
Yes and no. We have talked at length about what happens if, and I hope that's kind of where you're going. I think what happens if, I think that the first step in that journey is having this presentation here so that all these vital stakeholders in IDS's operations are aware of the situation. We'll need to begin to somewhat configure a message because I don't like surprises and I don't think anybody else does. So I think we can get through the fiscal year without ending spending and putting a hard stop on PAC spending. We are going to have to slow things down. My staff has done a tremendous job of getting payments out. If you were to see the whiteboard in Shannon Simmons' office next to mine, she tracks the payment date. You know, it's the date we're processing FIAPs, the date received at IDS. There's a little bit of a lag from the clerks to reach IDS. We're paying FIAPs in 30 to 45 days. It's the fastest I've seen in years. So I think the PAC is very happy they're getting paid. They're getting paid timely. With the new e-courts, that's a different way that we retrieve FIAPs. We're actually managing that quite well, considering those FIAPs are right caught up with the paper ones that we get in batches from the clerk's offices. So we do need to start messaging this because if we do need to slow things down, people are expected now, hey, IDS has done a great job. You're paying me at 60, 75, 90 days. Okay, we overcome the hurdle of a new financial system and e-courts, and now we're paying folks at 30 to 45 days when it goes back to 60, 75, hopefully not 90. We're going to need your help in keeping the PAC aware and willing to continue with us despite slowdowns. We are going to continue to pay people between now and June 30, but they're not going to be $9 and $10 million months. They're probably going to be $5 and $6 million months, which means we're going to be paying to the 30 to 45 days, 60 to 90 days. And that's kind of the doomsday scenario. We're not going to end spending. We're going to slow it down.
Okay. I think you have a good plan there. My concerns is when people get used to something, then they expect it.
They do. And I go back to that old saying, no good deed goes unpunished. My staff has worked remarkably well. The efficiency and the effectiveness that they've brought to their jobs with the new financial system impresses me every day. And the fact we've dropped from 90 days in many counties down to 30 days in many counties shows just how hardworking and skillful the staff is. But now we've conditioned folks to getting paid in a very short turnaround time. And how do we go backwards? It's hard, but it's the fiscal reality which we're faced.
Mary, a question for you. Have we and I know I'm not going to be on the commission, but my heart will be with you through this. Have we started doing one of two things? Have we started telling the legislature letters about what's happening? And number two, and I know the answer to that is yes, but number two, have we gone out to the chief judges who deal with the PACs and started telling them what's going to happen?
So the legislators, yes, I've communicated with and talked with the JPS appropriations chairs, the rules chair. We've had, the chief judges and I spoke to the chief district court judges in June, and I didn't give them the doomsday scenario. I did tell them that every stakeholder, not just people who do indigent defense work, needs to be out there educating their representatives about how important it is to get funding. I hold out hope that we're not going to continue to see this level of demand. It's unprecedented. I think that the PD offices the new ones are going to be pulling their weight, but that's not going to solve a $39 million hole. But a couple of things, you know, there was the post-pandemic push to dispose cases, and the bill came due for that. And there's this historic record number of homicide cases, which are our most expensive cases. And that's starting to decline just a little bit. We can all hope that that's a promising trend and that they will continue to decline. So I do hold out hope that demand will return to something more similar to what we've seen historically, but time will tell. I mean, certainly July and August are not looking any better. You know, and you know, another big unknown here is sort of once eCourts is fully rolled out and everybody's used to it, will that lower demand a little bit? Because I do know, you know, people are spending more time in district court. Most of our work is in district court. If they're billing more time in district court, that's costing us more money. But as people get used to the system, maybe they'll spend a little bit less time. I don't know where that's all going to shake out. The two biggest counties have now had eCourts for a while now. So hopefully they're used to it and maybe we'll see some efficiencies there. But then, of course, it's going to continue to roll out elsewhere. So, you know, it's eCourt gives and it takes away, right? It'll be great when it's all done and working, but in the short term, it inflicts some pain on us, as does any change. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Anyone else have any questions or comments for Aaron and his team? All right. Thank you again, sir. I'm not doing that again. All right. I was taking a brief pause because I didn't know if you all, what's the consensus of folks? I don't know if this would be a good time to take a little short break. I think this would. Okay, thank you, Mary. So I want to give it a little brief break. We do have quite a bit left to go through our agenda, but I know we're here sitting right in front of the computer. Now with eCourts, we are generally in front of the computer. And so you would like to get a little bit of time to rest your eyes and bathroom breaks or whatever else you need to do. So let's take 5 minutes. I think that'd be good. Okay. Thank you, Mary. I'm seeing your nonverbal communication. I appreciate it. All right. So we'll come back on 5 minutes, everybody. And then everybody will just kind of come in. All right. So I think we're at staff reports. We'll start with our regional defender. Great talk, Tucker Charnes.
Hey, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to talk about outreach. I'm going to talk about recruitment of new attorneys and retention of the attorneys that we have. So when I talk about outreach, I mean the regional defenders being in the counties. I might call it boots on the ground. I'd like to change that to heels on the ground in these counties. One of the things that this does, of course, is it continues to build relationships with the attorneys. So when things go wrong or a little bit wonky, they don't feel any hesitation in reaching out to us. And I can tell you that they frequently do reach out to us. It also helps us as the regional defenders, you know, spot issues in court, and not just issues with the attorneys, but sometimes system issues that the attorneys don't have enough, you know, perspective or time to deal with. One of those would be, for example, you see that so many folks are having trouble getting access to the jail. So that was a problem up in District 11, which is Vance, Warren, Granville, Franklin, and Person. And some of those counties were a little more challenging. And so we met with Judge Dunlow, and he assured us that if an attorney was having a hard time getting into the jail, that he would entertain a motion to dismiss. So you can bet I generated a couple motions to dismiss. They've not been heard, but I'm hoping that the jail access is getting a little better. Another thing that we could spot is the calendaring issue has reared its head again. I was one of the attorneys for the original Simeon v. Hardin legislation 30 years ago in Durham. And here we are in Durham, and we're still having a hard time getting the elected DA there to give us a published calendar with a trial order. Something to do with e-courts apparently is causing a problem with the statutes. I don't really understand that. Other districts can do that. That issue has not been resolved. It's one that we're continuing to work on. Part of the outreach, I want to let you know, I'm not sure if folks know this, but one of the things that Mary did when she got to IDS was that she created this role of attorney on call for the week. And so every call that comes in from a client, family member, or an attorney, there's a directive, there's a person that all staff knows that call can go to. Now that staff attorney might send that to the Capitol Defender's office or somewhere else, but somebody answers every single call. We also respond to every single letter that comes in. You know, those letters in pencil on those, lined pieces of paper. We respond to every one of those. And the staff attorneys are myself, Becky, Whitney, and Mary all take turns every week to be the attorney on call. And these things can turn into, you never know what they're going to turn into. But one of the great things about having the attorneys call in is it gives us an opportunity to talk to them about the resources that IDS offers. And these calls from attorneys turn into like repeated calls from attorneys, and not just from the MAC counties. And sometimes these repeated calls turn into CLEs. And next week I'll be in Burke County responding to some questions up there, and I'll be presenting on dealing with difficult clients. Apparently that comes up from time to time. I'm also going to be able to give a quick 30-minute presentation to the folks in Burke County and the surrounding counties about all the great resources that IDS offers, because we really do offer some great resources. Most of you know them, but we have free immigration consults, sex offender consults. If you have a problem, if you need a mitigation investigator, sometimes that can take the place, of a social worker helping you gather records and things like that. I think, and immigration. Oh, and Sarah's, Sarah Raphael-Olsen, her forensic stuff is just absolutely outstanding. So recruitment and retention. Since June, we've actually brought on 11 new attorneys for 5 different counties. That's very nice. We're always glad to have them. It's a mix of attorneys, more experienced than not. We also have 3 new attorneys that have joined us who have lots of experience outside of North Carolina. So that's going to be interesting to see, the perspective that they bring in here. Also, with newer attorneys and having the MAC program and having the regional defenders, we can kind of ease their way into the new court system, with materials and showing them the resources and the IDS website and things like that. As far as retention, we have a lot of attorneys that take breaks, but it's been a while since somebody has absolutely said, I'm not coming back. I could be overlooking somebody, it can be kind of traumatic. But one of the things that the attorneys like, and that one of the ways that we keep really good qualified attorneys is with the MAC program and them getting paid every month. They just, it's great. They put their hours in, they know how much money they're going to get. Also, they really like the flexibility of taking breaks, and they don't have to be the one to tell the courts. We're the ones that send the list to the courts. So if that name's not on the list, that attorney is on a break, and they don't have to justify to anybody, why they need a break. Sometimes you need a break because you have 20 cases. Sometimes you need a break because you have more than that, or you're getting ready for a trial, or your parents are sick. But they have the great flexibility that IDS tells the local counties, here's who is available. Now, sometimes this causes a problem because the judges, they have attorneys there, contract attorneys, but they're not on the list. And what I tell the judges is we can either have attorneys who are on a break, but they're continuing to work for us, or we can have attorneys or have no attorneys because we can't work with them and give them the flexibility that they need. I think the judges, I think it's going along. I think they're going along really well. I don't see many issues with that. But absolutely the ability under the MAC program for these PAC attorneys to say, I just can't take any more cases for whatever reason, for pretty much however long time that however much time they might need, we're able to give to them. I think Whitney's going to talk to you about the defender data part, but that's my report.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody have any questions for Tucker Charnes? Thank you, as always, Tucker, for the work you do.
Sure.
And the encouragement that you give to our folks, as you say, heels on the ground. All right. Whitney, you're up next. Introduction to defender data.
Yes, ma'am. Just one second. I'm trying to load up my PowerPoint and share my screen. Why is it not? All right. I'm sorry. I apologize, but it appears that I'm unable to share my screen for some reason.
Another hour or so, why?
On here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I can run out to Van and Laura's.
Or I can do it later today.
You have tennis.
I did
Commissioner Thor, can we get
See
you
if
to
it does
mute your
not in the
microphone, sir?
present.
the Friday clinic
Commissioner
is
Thor,
over.
can we get you to mute your microphone? All right. I'm sorry, Whitney.
It's okay. I'm unable to share my screen, unfortunately, so I will just have to tell you.
You want us to come back to you and swing back around and see if you could work on that?
You can print it out and hold it up.
Sure, if you
And
want to.
Whitney, if you want to
Whitney.
send it to me, I can share my screen if you'd like.
Give me a second to see if Max can figure this out, and if not, I may do that, Becky.
All
Or
right.
ask
So what
that
we'll do
Amanda.
then, we'll give you that space to do that, and we'll move to committee reports. And Becky, what a good segue. Or have you start.
There you
Good
go.
morning. Whitney, you ready for me to go, or are you
Oh, I think she got it. All right. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. I
Stay on
needed a
deck,
little
though,
bit of technical help. Max?
What do you say?
It's okay. Here we go. I'm going to talk to you about the kind of less exciting side of the MAC program, which is specifically the billing side. As some of you may have heard from folks in your districts, or as some of you may have experienced as contract attorneys, in June of this year, we switched over the billing protocols for the MAC system from these particularly heinous spreadsheets that have been in place since December of 2022 to defender data. Y'all are making me nervous. It's something.
That's what we're seeing.
Okay.
Try hitting F4. Is that the one that features full screen?
It's not. It's not letting me put it in. How about now?
You might not have selected the.
Yeah, no. This is not.
Let's try one more time. I think if you click on the PowerPoint. Here we go.
Here you
You got it
go.
there?
All right. So, as I was saying, free to go. We launched a new billing program for the attorneys under the MAC program at the beginning of June 2024 that replaced these particularly heinous spreadsheets that had been in place for the 2.5 years, or 18 months preceding the launch of the program. Here's a bit of a brief timeline. I'm not going to dig into it very deeply, but procuring, customizing, and launching the program had there were a bunch of moving parts associated with that process, from procurement through an RFP process, selecting a vendor, customizing the product to format it to our contractual needs, and then a really significant amount of data migration on the developer's part so that when the contractors switched over to the new system in June of this year, all of their case information for previously assigned or pending cases was already in the database when they started work. Then there followed a slog, I apologize for that, a real slog of training, 6 live virtual trainings during the very first week the program went live, 3 weeks of 90-minute long office hours with the developers, Jamie Blackwell, Angela Henderson, and me present for each of those sessions in order to answer specific questions from the contractors and get them up to speed so that they could use the program. And then time is a strange thing. On Monday of this week, we had our first live training here at the NCAOC in Raleigh, where contract attorneys and their support staff were able to come in with their own cases, get a view from 20,000 feet about the life cycle of the case, including opening cases, entering time, closing cases, and submitting for payment, and then use their own case information to walk through some of those steps with the developer from JusticeWorks, with Jamie, Angela, and I present in the room to answer specific questions. It was a long day. There were 2 separate sessions. I think several people really made a lot of headway, and I think that most of the folks who were able to attend were very appreciative of JusticeWorks and IDS taking the time to do that. So very quickly, because this is not the focus of this presentation, and I am not the best person to answer questions about the program itself, but its basic functionality is that it allows the contractors to enter case information into the system, charge time and expenses against a case, and then submit what we refer to as a voucher to IDS for payment. And they do this on a monthly basis. That's one of the things Tucker talked about. That is part of our contractual agreement with the attorneys in the MAC program, that we will pay them on a month-to-month basis in arrears on or by the 15th of each month. And referring back to what Aaron and Art were talking about, when people get used to something, then they really expect it. And we've done a fairly good job, with a few missteps related to NCFS rollout, with getting all of the data into IDS, processing it, and turning it around by that midpoint of each month. On our side, Angela and I Angela principally, I should tell you all of this, that Angela Henderson, who I believe is in the meeting, really carried the weight of this rollout with the attorneys. Jamie has been exceptionally good at answering technical questions and working through policies and procedures. The poor guy read chapter 90-95 in order to understand how drug charges work. So everybody's really been committed to making this work. But Angela bore the brunt of it in the first week of its full rollout, or the first week of vouchering. And I don't think that the MAC program or Defender Data would be successful without her on staff. I know that I would have crawled back into bed virtually every day over the last month if it weren't for Angela Henderson. So on our side, Angela reviews time and expenses. Then I conduct a special review of certain requests. And then together we approve the submitted vouchers and transfer them to fiscal services for payment. That's the view for 20,000 feet. But what I want to talk to you more specifically about today, and very quickly, is exactly what we see when we're in Defender data. It gives us a novel look into data, or I should say it gives us a novel data set, one that we haven't been privy to before and couldn't have put together without substantial amounts of time on the part of fiscal services and our research division. It really drills down into things such as the number of open cases an attorney may have and how their time is being used on those cases. Prior to Defender data rolling out, we only had a spreadsheet. It gave us some very basic information about each case. Cross-referencing from case to case and month to month was a bit of a bear, but we set up certain guardrails for reviewing and approving submissions for payment. Cost controls were limited though, and it was difficult to implement, particularly when, as you see from this screen, attorneys were using spreadsheets to report hours on up to 684 open cases. But we did attempt to put the guardrails in place. What's different now is we not only know that kind of raw number of open cases and a couple of general pieces of data regarding the case, but we can see how the cases work together in an individual time period. So what you're looking at here is a report from an individual attorney from a single session of court where the attorney is requesting compensation for 11 hours. Now, I understand that things happen. I understand that courts go long. I understand that courts occasionally work through lunch, but I also understand that those are the exception and not the rule. I also think that those are particularly the exception in the case types that Indigent Defense Services funds. Realizing that every district is different and that my numbers may not be general enough to kind of cover the shore, I think that there are about 6.5 hours of court time available in a business day and very little more. Some of this could be about education and outreach on IDS's part. I think there is confusion in the field about what is time in court and what is time in court waiting. And we really need to do a better job of making sure the field understands our 3 buckets of time. The second thing we can see is time in a 24-hour period. I don't know how well this screen or this slide, I don't know how readable this slide is, I should say. But if you can see about a half dozen or more red line time entries, these are single days where an attorney reported working more than 8 hours. Again, I realize attorneys work more than 8 hours in a day. I work more than 8 hours in a day, and I only feel like an attorney half the time. Well, heck, my job is only half-time attorney. So I understand that all of us put in more than 8 hours a day. We may need to revise that bottom number. However, you'll notice that there are a number where it's 14.3, 14.7, 17.9 hours. There are 2 things going on here. There are one of many things going on here. One is that the attorney is struggling to enter data correctly, or 2, the attorney is just plain overloaded. Either way, 18, 15, 16 hours a day should be the exception and not the norm. So one of the things I need to tell you about both of these and what's so novel about it, this 11 hours in a single day and the subsequent, no, it won't advance. You know what's next, and it's my last slide. The subsequent over 10 hours or over 8 hours in a day. The reason this is novel for us is each of these time entries that you're seeing here comes from a different client. In the paper fee application world, if we were to try to figure that out, which we have done when circumstances have called upon us to do it, we would have to pull dozens or even hundreds of fee applications for a single attorney and then map out when he or she might be reporting time. And even then it's virtually impossible because we didn't require on the fee applications for kind of a detailed timesheet to be submitted, except when the judge required it, which means in court time waiting was an aggregate without a timestamp attached to it. This particular attorney's record shows all of the clients that he worked for in that single session of court, and that time aggregates to more than 9 hours of court time. I think 9 is the rule we have set up for this. On the days where attorneys are reporting working 20 hours a day, we're able to expand that selection and see each of the different clients that make up the 20 hours. I want to be clear. I am not suggesting that there is anything untoward or nefarious going on here. I think that some of the attorneys are simply overburdened with case numbers. I think some of the attorneys are not the best record keepers, and they try to backfill the system at the end of the month with the time they may have spent. This is not an indictment of any individual attorney. This is just my opportunity to give you a view of the way we're now seeing some of the data in the MAC counties. And of course, this brushes up against the issue where we have attorney deserts. We're not able to find enough attorneys to cover the work. That's the way you end up with an attorney who might have 684 open cases. And defender data and the information we can see in it won't solve that problem, but it may be able to help us forecast in a way where Tucker and Angela and other folks in the regional defender and contracting program can intervene early enough to stave off some kind of disaster. The reason, and those are longer conversations that I think are already ongoing and will continue to go on. But the reason I wanted to talk to you about it today is because I've spoken with Mary, I've spoken with Tucker. I think it's time with this information that the agency develop guardrails for how we review and how we approve requests for payments in the managed assigned counsel system. As Mary pointed out, this is the first time where it's really our skin in the game. In the past, if a judge approved a fee application that was outside or wildly outside of the average hours for a particular case type, a separate judicial official had made that approval. This is on IDS, and we have an obligation to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. We have an obligation to try to pay for smart criminal defense as much as we pay for anything else. I had some rules in place with the spreadsheet. I would look at monthly total billing of $10,000 or more. When I saw that, I would review at least 3 months of billing to see if there was a consistent over 10K billing or it was an anomaly. I would check open case numbers to see if that was the problem. I would consider talking to Tucker about putting the contractor on pause if it was. I would check in court and in court waiting time and, multiply 6.5 numbers by the number of court days available in the month. I would take the total hours and divide it by 4.3 to try to dive deeper into how many hours the attorney might be working in the week. And then I would look at case specific billing outside of expected ranges promulgated by IDS research staff. On the one hand, at the end of the day, if the attorney has over 680 open cases, then you would expect to see high hours and you have to deal with a different problem. I will tell you that using defender data and eCourt, I was able to determine within about 15 minutes that at least 15 to 20 of those open cases were in fact disposed cases. So again, I think there are some record keeping issues that may also be related to having way too many open cases. I mean, even if you carve out 150 cases, you still have a massive caseload at 534 cases. So this brings me to the ask of this presentation. I've just walked you through some of the guidelines I had in place when I was reviewing the spreadsheets. Now that we have more granular data, now that we have a system that's easier to review than the spreadsheets, because a lot of this review is done under compressed time, I want to ask that the chair of the commission consider convening an ad hoc committee to work with me, Wendy Sotolongo, who also has some MAC contracts in place, and probably a representative of the research division and the rest of the contract team, to formalize some policies and some procedures for thank God, not weekly, monthly review of the MAC vouchers. Something that is predictable, something that is defensible, and something that is fair. I think that staff can do the bulk of the work on this, but we would want guidance from the commission. And I think that the best way to do that is through some committee work in advance of the November 15th commission meeting.
Yes, to your ask. I don't think we need a vote for that. A formal motion for that. Asking me as the chair, yes, I will definitely convene an ad hoc committee to formalize these policies and to work on these matters for our next meeting. And we'll get together, and if I have volunteers from our commissioners, I would love to hear from you. Okay, I see you, Commissioner Doyle, but otherwise I will, and Commissioner Rubain, thank you. So at least have those two, and then I will put the other members on that committee, and we'll get that work rolling. Thank you so much, Whitney.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Anybody have any questions or comments in regards to Whitney's presentation? All right, we got quite a bit of data that you all kind of forged through. We really appreciate it. All right, so next, Becky, you're on deck.
All right.
We'll
Good
go to
afternoon.
committee report, starting with you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Judge Mitchell. Good afternoon, everybody. I won't take very long, but I do just want to provide you all with brief updates regarding two of your committees. The first one is the Defender Workload Committee. As you probably recall, IDS has a legislative mandate to develop standards for public defender and appointed counsel workloads. The Defender Workload Committee has met twice since May. As you can imagine, summer is not a very easy time to convene folks. So their work has maybe started out a little bit slower. But the committee consists of a diverse group representing chief public defenders, assistant public defenders, private assigned counsel, and representatives from the commission itself. So we have commissioners on that committee as well. So far, the commission has reviewed the 1973 standards issued by the National Advisory Commission on Criminal Justice Standards and Goals, as well as the 2019 North Carolina IDS workload assessment done by the National Center for State Courts, and the most recent 2023 National Public Defense Workload Study done by RAND in conjunction with the National Center for State Courts and the American Bar Association. If you think back to the IDS Commission meeting from last October, I presented an overview of those three things and how they might eventually form the basis of this committee's work, should the Commission decide to authorize a committee, which you did. This group is currently working through existing IDS data on average hours reported by private assigned counsel for various case types. IDS Research Director Chris Sadler is guiding them through the numbers and working on creating a narrative out of the raw data to provide additional context and help non-researchers make sense of the data. Next, they will review some of the different caseload and workload standards for indigent defense in other states, again, for additional context for their work. So their next big decision will be whether they think we currently have sufficient data to formulate workload standards between that 2019 North Carolina specific assessment, the 2023 National Workload Study, and the data that we have from PAC submitted hours, or whether they think we need additional data and what that might look like, whether it would be something that we can put together internally with our research department, or if it would be something that we would need to look at outsourcing. As of right now, I don't have a specific time frame for the work of this committee, but we try to meet monthly. Moving on, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Digital Discovery Committee. The Digital Discovery Committee has met consistently since March, and I'm going to ask Chad Boykin and Sarah Olson to just jump in if I, miss anything. I'll have them to just jump in if they need to provide anything additional. That committee consists of IDS staff and representatives for chief public defenders and private assigned counsel. They have completed an inventory of the technology tools, products, and services in use by public defenders and private assigned counsel to the extent that we're aware of those tools that PAC are using. And they've divided that list into items that are within the scope of the committee's work as it pertains to digital discovery, and those that are outside the scope. So there's literally like a running, working Word doc table that is just all of the different tech products and services that we use. So whether it's something like LexisNexis, which is a research tool that we provide to public defenders, which doesn't really have as much to do with digital discovery, or something like evidence.com, which I'll talk more about in a minute, that does, significantly bear upon the question of digital discovery. So evidence.com, also known as Axon, I'm not even sure what the proper name for it as of right now is, because Axon is sort of the overarching company. Evidence.com is the product, I guess, as I understand it. But that's one of the primary products under consideration by this committee. Some of our public defender offices currently have access to evidence.com because that's how they're receiving digital discovery from their district attorneys. And it's how the DA offices are getting that discovery from their law enforcement agencies. So it's not something that IDS is dealing with in a vacuum, right? So we have to respond to the way that other folks and other stakeholders are sort of adjusting and utilizing this kind of platform. But we do understand that more DA offices are utilizing evidence.com. So, again, we have to respond to that. As we roll it out to public defender offices, we'll be working on getting them trained to maximize their use of it and make sure that they're using all the different capabilities and functionalities that are there. And the committee is continuing to explore the discovery management functionality that it offers, how we might make that available to both public defenders and private assigned counsel. It seems to be a good product, but again, it's not at all inexpensive, and cost is a major consideration. So beyond evidence.com, the committee is looking at the broader issue of discovery management, of efficient management of digital discovery. They're discussing training topics that IDS can offer to help defenders adopt best practices for managing their discovery. And as more headway is made on these projects, the committee will report its findings to the commission and offer recommendations for how the commission can support improved access to digital discovery management tools and practices. So that's pretty much what I have for you. Chad and Sarah, did y'all have anything to add there? Anything I missed? Okay. That's it for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Anybody have any questions or comments for Becky? I see Mary, your hand raised up.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody involved in the work on this committee, because I think it's really important. The discovery has changed so much just in the past 6 or 8 years, and will continue to change. And when we're kind of thinking through the reasons for this increased demand we're seeing, I can't help but think that some of it is the fact that lawyers are now wading through tremendous amounts of video, audio, digital stuff that they just didn't deal with 10, 15 years ago. So to the extent we can help that, figure out how we can help the management manage it, use it, be efficient with it, that's also the good. It's kind of mind-boggling, some of the products that are out there and some of the things that these folks are having to wade through. So
yeah, definitely. These two committees, the work of these two committees is certainly interconnected, because the massive increase in digital discovery and the time that it takes to get through all of that, it certainly has an impact on defender workloads. So that's, of course, something that the workloads committee will be considering as well. That's just sort of a new consideration in particular when it comes to formulating workload standards.
All right, any other comments or questions from anyone? All right, thank you again, Becky, and all the folks, just like Mayor said, all the folks that serving on these two committees. All right, we move now to our commission business. And we'll start with policy on, well, start with you, Mary. Policy on
Okay.
successful MARs, yes.
Do you have what you need?
Yeah, I think so. So the background on this, folks, is that in maybe 2010 or 2011, the agency instituted a policy that required attorneys who wanted to litigate a successor MAR in a capital post-conviction case had to get approval or permission from the executive director. And by way of background, for those of you who haven't done or don't do capital post-conviction work, a death sentence defendant has a direct appeal, and then they can file a motion for appropriate relief in state court. And then once that's litigated, if they don't get relief, litigated all the way through the North Carolina Supreme Court and post-conviction, then they go into federal habeas proceedings and win or lose there, go up to the Fourth Circuit, go to the United States Supreme Court, and if they're never successful, they come back to in a clemency posture right before the governor. So IDS funds the trial work, the appellate work, and the state court post-conviction work. There are really limited circumstances under which a successor MAR can proceed, right? Because there's a procedural bar statute. If you were in a position to raise something earlier and you didn't, it's barred. That doesn't mean it's impossible, right? New evidence of actual innocence, you can file a second MAR or a successor MAR. I think if there are changes in the law that are applied retroactively, you can file a successor MAR, but you can't just find something that maybe you think should have been raised before and go back to court. So this policy was in place, I think, until 2016. Is that right? Or 2018. And then my predecessor asked the commission to revoke the policy. He basically didn't think as Elisa Wolfer used to say, didn't think the juice was worth the squeeze. It took time to review and think through and authorize or disavow. And he didn't think it was worth keeping the policy in place. And he asked the commission to vote on rescinding it, and the commission voted to rescind it, and it wasn't effective anymore. And I think normally, Whitney and I have kind of talked about this, normally we could just implement a policy, but we felt like since the commission voted to rescind this policy, I should ask the commission if it's okay with them, you all, for me to reinstate it. I do think this is a useful policy. It's 6 or so years later. I review the capital post-conviction bills, see folks billing work for, investigating successor MAR. I want them to come back and articulate why they think that will be something that is viable, that's not procedurally barred. They should be able to do that. I think it's a useful exercise for the attorney to have to sit down and think through it and articulate it. If there's nothing there, the attorney, I think, is better off going to federal court and seeking funds for investigation there or for clemency proceedings, right? Instead of at the end of the day coming back to state court for something that's not going to go anywhere. So it shouldn't be, it's not a very big ask for the lawyers. I don't think it's going to be a significant amount of work for me. I'm not going to the extent people have been working in good faith, investigating successors during the time period that the policy was not in effect, they're still going to get paid for that, but I do want them to come and just seek authorization before doing any more work on that or before doing it in cases where maybe they haven't started doing it. So the proposed policy is in your packet, and I'm happy to entertain any questions. Yeah, happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mary. Does anybody, everyone should, as Mary stated, received and should, hopefully you've been able to review the policy in your materials. Does anyone have any questions or comments that you would like to make in regards to this? And this is a matter that Mary is asking us to take action on. Anybody? All right, I thought I heard somebody. All right, do I have a motion in regards to the policy on successor MARs?
I'll make a motion.
All right, thank you. Brian Jones.
Seconded, John Neiman.
All right. Second, John Neiman. All right, so we have a motion to approve this policy on successor MARs and a second by John Neiman. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your virtual hand or actual hand on the screen.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you, everyone. Any opposed, please say nay. All right, Mary, you got it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, next we come, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, back to you, Dorothy.
All right, thank you. So next, I do need to convene the personnel committee. I'm so sad for the reason why I need to convene the personnel committee. But we do need to do so. I'm sure, do you all recall receiving the news that is heartbreaking to some of us, but we understand the news and we look forward to Wendy Sotolongo being able to enjoy retirement when she gets there. But we do need to convene our personnel committee, and we're going to talk much more about that, Wendy. We're not going to go down that road today about how much we're going to miss you and the great work that you've done, other than to say just that and how much we appreciate you. Okay. But I know we're going to speak about that much more later. But we do need to, I need to convene our personnel committee so that we can start working on Wendy's replacement, which we know will not ever be able to fulfill her shoes. But I know her, the person that she is, she's going to help us in regards to that, as well as she's created a long legacy and will leave some great materials and leadership and all of that good stuff behind her. So I do need to convene that committee. I do have some folks that we have, as you all know, we just recently met as the personnel committee when we had to deal with the reappointment and the of Mary Pollard. And so we will convene in the same fashion in order to work on this to get our person to replace Wendy Sotolongo. So if you have served on that committee, you will continue to serve on that committee. And then I have to get some other members to serve because some of our committee members are leaving us. Some of our commissioners that's on that committee are leaving us. And so I'm going to have to put some other people on that committee. Do I need to say anything more in regards to that, Mary or Whitney?
I think you've got, that's going to be a challenging task.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. We know it will be. All right. So just be, you all commissioners, please be on the listen out about that, as well as our staff members about that committee work. All right. So I will get to you all in regards to you serving on that committee. All right. Chad.
So can I ask you a question about retirement?
Did I ask a question about it?
Or may I ask a question about retirement?
Yes, sir.
Are you going to go to, I just imagine you going to Italy and doing cooking classes and living in Tuscany, kind of an eat, pray, love type of retirement.
Wow. That sounds amazing.
I hope they would do that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know yet. I have a feeling at some point though, after my mandatory waiting time, I may actually try to represent a client or two, see if I remember what a courtroom looks like.
Typical lawyer retirement answer.
And definitely typical Wendy. So
Well, that's
Absolutely.
good. You can keep us updated.
Absolutely. Anything else from any commissioners in regards to this? All right. Next, Chad Boykin on the waiver of 1-year deadline for fee applications.
Don't unmute.
Yeah. Making sure we got the technical stuff taken care of. I think we do. Good afternoon, everyone. Just have 3 attorneys that have submitted 1-year deadline waivers. As a quick refresher, fee applications have to be submitted to the court for review or to IDS in capital or appellate cases within 1 year of the final disposition. If they are not, a waiver can be submitted. If the submission happened within 1 year and 90 days of the deadline, then our director can approve. If it is outside that 1 year and 90 days, then they have to go to the commission. So we have 3 attorneys who have submitted deadline waivers that were outside that 1 year and 90 days. The first one is for Attorney Thomas Johnson. Really quickly, the show cause here was that there were family medical emergencies, sudden illnesses of both parents that delayed the ability to submit this fee application. This was for a capital case. We reviewed this. The director's recommendation is that we go ahead and pay in full. Full payment for this fee application, which is 66.15 hours, would be $6,055.20. So any additional questions on that one, or if you'd like to go ahead and take a vote on this one?
All right. Thank you, sir. Anybody have any? Were you about to say something, Mary? I'm sorry.
I think they should probably, I was just telling Chad, I think we should probably go ahead and have you all take the vote, because I think the next one's a little bit, might engender a little bit more discussion, or the last one. One of them is going to engender some discussion, so.
Yeah,
let's do the easy ones.
Yeah, we wanted to do the easy ones first and then do the one that might have more discussion. So sometimes we vote on all of them at once, but we're going to go ahead and ask to vote on each one as we go. So if there's,
Okay. Did you want to give us which ones, or you want to?
Yeah, so I'm just asking on this
Before
one.
we go there, does anybody have any questions in general? All right, good deal.
Right, so just asking for a motion to approve this waiver request.
So moved. Second.
All right, who was it? I'm sorry, I missed who actually made the motion.
That was me.
All right, and then the second.
Me.
All right. And then Art. All right, we have a motion and a proper second to approve this waiver. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand. Any opposed, please say nay, or give us a thumbs down.
This is John Neiman. If I could abstain, Mr. Johnson's a close personal friend.
All right, we got you down, Commissioner Neiman, for you abstaining on this matter. Thank you, sir. All right, I think that passes though.
All right. Thank you, everyone. The next one, again, this should be very quick, and I'd like to ask for a motion as soon as we go over this one. Then we have one more after it, and then we're done. Second one is for Attorney Matt Craven. The show cause here is that this is case overload. We were talking about this earlier. This attorney had an extraordinarily high caseload. I believe that this is also an attorney desert. There were only 2 other appointed attorneys in this county. They stopped taking cases for a short period of time, which left this attorney, Mr. Craven, carrying the entire burden. So because of that overwhelming caseload, he was unable to submit this fee app. It was a reasonable amount of time. I believe it was 2 years that it took to get this fee application submitted. Again, the director's recommendation is full payment, and the amount here would be $5,136. That reflects 59.8 hours on a Class A felony. So again, the recommendation is full payment. The show cause was overwhelming caseload. This attorney for a period of time was the only attorney able to do cases in this county, which was Franklin County. So I'd like to ask if there's not any questions, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve this.
I'd make a motion that it be approved.
John Neiman, second.
Brian Jones, Brian Jones made the motion, Neiman made the second to approve this waiver with the payment of full payment. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay or thumbs down. All right, that was approved.
Great, thank you. And the final attorney request, this is multiple cases from the same attorney. And so I'll just start off with the show cause. The show cause is the same for all the cases. There were 10 fee applications submitted for consideration of waiver. They range in time from just being 1 year, 90 days plus, 7 months up to 9 years and 1 month and 12 days. So there's a broad range. So we looked at this. The show cause is that the district attorney entered voluntary dismissals, basically off docket. And the attorney was not provided with a copy of the dismissal. And the attorney at some point became aware of these dismissals and prepared fee applications and submitted them. But essentially the show cause for all of them is that off-book dismissals by the DA, and the attorney was not provided notes of those dismissals. There is a requirement that the attorneys maintain a check on their cases. And we know that sometimes caseloads are very high, but there is that presumption. So what we considered obligation, yes. So what we considered in this instance was that for 2 of the cases that were submitted within 1 to 3 years of the deadline, we recommended full payment for those 2 cases. That relief would constitute $221. But again, those are 2 cases out of 10 where the deadline was not in excess of 3 years. We took a close look at this. We discussed it with fiscal as well as leadership. And one more note, fiscal advised that there are 2 payment systems and there is a heavy burden to do the research necessary to check into cases that are older than 3 years. We have NCFS, but older cases you have to go into NCAS, which is the old accounting system. Aaron might be able to speak more to the details, but he let us know that there is a heavy burden and an issue in looking up cases that are older than 3 years. It can be done, but we would like to request that payment for the cases that are older than 3 years. And again, that range is 7 of the 10 fee apps were submitted between 5 and 9 years of the 1 year. So we're talking between 5 years and a decade. We were not comfortable recommending payment on those because of the combination of the show cause being difficult to ascertain and also the length of time that it took to get those submitted. But the floor is open for the commission to make the decision to pay those, to not pay, or to impose a penalty. And so I would just make a motion that our recommendation is that the first 2 cases, again, those were submitted within 1 to 3 years, be paid in full. That's $221, but we were not comfortable making the recommendation that the other 7, which were between 5 and 10 years, be made. So open the floor to any questions.
Chad, this is John Neiman. Is the show cause for all of them off out of court dismissals?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is the total for the other 7?
So the total payment for all of them would be $3,146.50.
So it'd be almost 3,000 for the rest of them.
Yeah, just a little over 3,000. So it'd be 33,146 to pay everything in full.
And then you all are recommending paying 200. 220, something like that. Okay.
Yes,
Thank
sir. Basically, that's the two cases being paid in full that were submitted within the 3 years.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other?
Can I,
Yeah, Ron Jones, yes.
it's really frustrating because I see what's going on. To me, that's the best possible excuse is that the DA dismisses it and you didn't get notice of the dismissal. I mean, you go to court and probable cause is waived. You go to district court on a felony. You get waived probable cause. You spend a lot of time with the client. It's a big deal. And then for whatever reason, you check back, you say, hey, what's going on with this case? We're working on it. Sometimes some DAs will have a 6 months, no packet turned in. We're going to go ahead and dismiss it. But sometimes you call up there and say, hey, Jason, what are you going to do about the Smith case? And Jason's like, oh, let me get the file. And then, some storm rolls in. You got to take care of that. And then you check in on it again. And it's like, I told you I would get back in contact. Then you get your paralegal to do it. She calls, waiting on a call back. It's literally the part of your practice that can drive you crazy. And then all of a sudden you go and you're like, oh, that was dismissed 6 months ago. We didn't tell you? Like, what's wrong with you? And so I see this issue. And a lot of times there's not a lot of time invested between when a felony is in district court to the waiver of probable cause, and then you don't hear so much from it. But I understand now. 3 years, 3 years, 3 years. It seems like a long time. But I think, isn't there something where we can pay the guy the full amount, but say, hey, the whole commission has decided that 3 years is a little much, and not like a wrist slap, because I think that has bad, but just say, some of the commission members understood what the issue is, but we recommend that there is a 6 month check-in, or just go to the Superior Court clerk and say, let me see the file. Let me see if there's a dismissal in it. But I understand that frustration.
Hey, Brian, can I jump in?
Yes, please.
Let me jump in for a second. If it's a year, I'm okay with us saying, we all have a bunch of plate spinning. You forget, things get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But some of these 3 years and not paying attention to whether the case is dismissed, that's too long. I think that's unacceptable, and a slap on the wrist isn't enough, in my opinion. I'm going to bring the recommendation.
100%. If there was a centralized place that you could go to just all the time, sometimes you're getting bad information from the DA. Sometimes the person that you're talking to is not giving you good information, and therein lies the frustration.
But aren't they?
I agree. If you could just,
shouldn't they be communicating with their clients? Shouldn't they be?
The client doesn't know. That's my point. Nobody gets. The DA can do a quiet dismissal. The point of which, so nobody knows about it. That's the point. So it almost stays like a secret dismissal. So the client doesn't even know either.
A couple of things. One, I apologize. I have a tree being taken down in my backyard. So if you hear background noise, I apologize. But I would think, just on behalf of your client, they want to have closure. They shouldn't have to wait 3, 4, 5 years to hear that they've gotten their case dismissed. You should be knocking on their door, and we're all busy. I'm not going to suggest that you have an answer every month or every 30 days, but 3 years is a long, long time. So therefore, I'm going to recommend that we go with the IDS recommendation and only pay the ones within 3-year window. And frankly, I would be okay with paying only the ones within a 1-year window.
Mhm. I understand the perspective. I do. I've just been, I've seen it to where it's hard to get an answer sometimes. So I see both points of view. I'm not in my corner by any means, but it's just a very understandable situation that can happen.
Yes,
Especially
Brian.
if the guys
Could I
pled
throw this
guilty.
out there? Could I throw this out
Yes.
there? Just because I need this reminder. It's kind of a statement and a question all at the same time. Isn't it still the case that PAC attorneys can submit interim fee applications when the case has not been completely resolved? Right, Chad? Okay, I see you shaking it. So that in the very least could have happened in this instance to cover some of this time period. And I definitely hear both perspectives and understand from both perspectives of the two Brians on our commission. I tend to see the point more on in regards to Brian Cromwell in that it sounds like a bigger issue here, which is this attorney should have been more on top of this person's case or these folks' cases. And that to me is what I'm hearing from you, Brian Cromwell, as to why you don't believe that a slap on the wrist will be enough, because that's a bigger issue that we need to be concerned about as far as the representation side of it, not just this, what we're dealing with on the actual payment of the fee.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would second.
Uh-oh. Kate, you went out again. For some reason, your computer doesn't want to hear your voice. Doesn't want us to hear your voice today.
We heard you say I could second. Maybe you could you type it in the chat real quick? I'm sorry. Because
Yeah.
you second one of the Bryans. That's really, it's really hard to
Right.
tell which direction there.
Which is good either way. Could be good either way.
And one other thing
I
I
just
might
quickly
say.
say,
Go ahead.
I just want to say real quick with Brian, understanding Brian Jones's position, having spent a career representing appointed clients, sometimes they go off into the never sphere, and if nothing's happening, you may just not be keeping up with something. And since these ones within 3 years add up to $200, they don't sound like these are major cases, and I'm assuming the clients weren't in custody. So I understand that. I think where as much as I would want to support private assigned counsel and how tough it is to keep them, after about after 3 years, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, that's kind of that even
I
begs
understand.
my.
And personally, I just wouldn't turn it. I mean, if it was a couple $100, I just wouldn't turn it in. But I sometimes the client will get another attorney on a new batch of cases, and the DA will see that and dismiss it as part of a plea agreement with another lawyer. It's easy to get discombobulated that way in the system. And, you kind of think, it's not an indecent liberties charge where the guy has no record and the matter just gets dismissed. Like, of course, we're all checking on that. It's the possession with intent that they presented no evidence on, and then the guy goes out and a year later gets a trafficking, and you're checking that he gets appointed somebody else. They handle it and just throw that in as part of the plea arrangement, and a year later, where it's never been indicted, and it can. But I did, like I said, I just don't want this guy to look too bad, basically, because I can see something like that kind of slipping through the cracks. But so I just wanted to speak my piece. That's all.
Thank you, sir. So we'll take your advice and not look at him so badly, but we can look at him with a little side eye and be concerned. Okay. How about that?
Thank you.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I would move to accept the recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Miriam Thompson.
Okay. That's the second to that motion.
Yes, Miriam Thompson second.
All right. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Neiman and a second by Thompson to accept the recommendation in regards to these particular fee applications and the waiver. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Raise your hand. All right. Any opposed, please say nay or thumbs down. All right. That passes as well. Thank you. Any more, Chad? Okay. That's it? I thought you said just 3. All right. Okay. Do we have any, Brian Jones, you still got your hand raised. Is that just from before or you?
That's just from before. I'm going to lower my hand. There
Okay.
we go.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any other business? I don't think I have any. Mary or Whit or anyone else, do we have any other business that you can think of?
Thank you all for being here. And,
Absolutely.
everything you do. Thank you. Stay dry.
Yes. And as I will piggyback off of that and thank everyone too. I kind of was forging through. I saw how we were moving along the agenda, which is why I just kind of kept going. So I thank you all for forging through with us. I know how difficult it can be sometimes having these virtual meetings. But we got through it even before the complete lunchtime. We're still within the lunchtime for you all to be able to go and get your lunch and continue with the rest of your day, as opposed to us taking a lunch break and coming back. And I think you all probably would prefer that. Commissioner Doyle, was that you raising? Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, I just like before the meeting is concluded, I sent Mary Pollard and John Neiman a copy of a decision of the Ninth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals in which a federal district court judge in Oregon told the court system that if you don't appoint a lawyer for an incarcerated defendant within a certain period of time, the state has to release that defendant. The federal district court judge agreed with that. It went to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit agreed with the lower court. It seems that indigent defense is really having a crisis across the country. And I've been a PAC lawyer since 1982, prior to IDS. They're a wonderful organization. I'm so proud to be associated with them. But these shortfalls have been going on forever. So I don't know if it's important for us as commissioners to go out and educate judges, try to get ourselves invited. But John Neiman and I have been around a long time, and we've seen all this, and I don't see it getting much better except for this creation of IDS. Just wonderful things. So I just throw that out. I don't know if we should commission a study, a nonpartisan study to give to the legislature about what's going on. I'm not sure what to do, but Madam Chair, I just throw that out for us to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You're going to say anything else from anyone else?
I think Mary's hand is up.
I just wanted to say, I think, we certainly educate judges, educate legislators. I think the most important thing that we can do as lawyers is educate lawyers who do not do indigent defense work and who do not do criminal defense work about how important the work is and how they should, as colleagues in the profession, they should be supporting this work and adequate resources for it. As colleagues in the profession, all of whom have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution, which includes the Sixth Amendment, so they should be in the trenches with us asking for resources. That's all. So.
All right, anything else from anyone?
Well, I really appreciate my first meeting, and except for George calling me old, it was pretty painless. So everyone have a good weekend.
You have a great one as well, sir.
John, I was going to say you actually look younger now than when you were the chief public defender. Is that something we can look forward to?
Retirement every day is Saturday.
That would do
Dorothy,
it.
you've concluded the agenda, so you can adjourn without motion when you're ready.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. You all have a great day. I hope you're safe where you're at. From what I understand, we might get some more rain, but hopefully you continue to be safe. And help your neighbors out if they need the help. Hopefully they'll
Thanks,
help you
all.
too. Okay. Yes.
See you
Y'all have a
soon.
good
Thanks all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.